Black Tech Green Money, Will Lucas here, another episode. I'm super excited to bring you Monk Inyang, CEO and founder of First Street Partnerships. He's on a mission to make AI more practical, and that's definitely needed in our community right now, make it more accessible and culturally relevant, especially for underrepresented communities. Through First Street Partnerships, he helps businesses, leaders, community harness the power of AI for growth, creativity, and economic opportunity, blending those strategic expertise that he brings with storytelling and innovation. He's empowering people to use AI with confidence and intention. Welcome to the show, Monk Inyang.
Thank you, Will. Thank you. Appreciate it. Definitely glad to have this conversation. Big fan of the show. Thank you for the space to talk about this. It's a really important conversation to have.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I want to start because you have spent a lot of time working with students, middle school students, high school students, and et cetera. And so you also write books for them. So what influenced you to work with people, especially in our communities, at such a young age?
Yeah. I think, for me personally, I've always been a creative at heart. I started writing fiction when I was in third grade and selling it to friends as a kind of sideways hustle to make some money on, on the side in middle school. And I think that age range and that imagination and what you view as possible and the way you view the world is really special. And so connecting with students at that age, and I kind of try and bring that to the work that I do now, of really like imagination and like your highest level of creativity, whether you consider yourself a creative or not. That's what, when we tap into that, you see some really special things. So I love being around that group for that reason.
And you talked about fiction, which I love to read fiction, especially near future fiction is, my particular genre. How has the storytelling, that ability that you've harnessed and cultivated, how has that helped you with your leadership and ability to communicate, things like AI to these communities?
Yeah. I think, when you're looking at storytelling, and all great stories follow particular paths and have a rhythm and a way of kind of bringing the audience in. And one of the big rules of storytelling is you want to let the audience know what they have in store up front, and kind of ease some of the fears of am I going to enjoy this or not. And so when I have conversations with people about AI and I go through the training and we're connecting, those same principles kind of come in place as well. We help move people from AI anxiety to AI adoption. And that's through really culturally resonant, community-based education. And so the storytelling of, meeting people where they are and kind of saying, it makes sense that you may be apprehensive about this, right? Either this thing is going to be the greatest thing in the universe, which causes its own, all right, let's relax, or it's going to be the Terminator and it's going to destroy everyone. And so in either direction, you may not come at this or feel that, this is something that may be for you. And so helping people walk through that path of understanding that, if you center yourself, and we have to center our humanity. Our humanity is what created and researched and brought this technology into our lives. And our humanity is the only thing that gives value to whatever it creates. It doesn't create things in a vacuum. We are the ones who say that is very helpful to do. And so when you center yourself and kind of anchor yourself, and that's the framework that we use in all of our training, anchored intelligence as opposed to artificial intelligence. When you anchor your humanity, your creativity, your voice in how you use the technology, it changes the way you view it, what you think is possible. It raises your ambition. And so that's what what I look for, and storytelling and doing that in the class helps people see that.
Dig it. I want to set some landscape here because, there's a lot to your story and a lot happening currently with your story that we'll congratulate you on and I'll give you the opportunity to talk about. So before I get deeper into like your work, I want to talk about this relationship with Kevin Hart. So talk about the Caramino Fund and the new news that's up in your world.
Yeah, so we're incredibly honored to be partnering with Kevin Hart's Gran Caramino tequila brand. And so they have a Caramino fund where they provide $10,000 grants to Black and Latinx entrepreneurs around the country. And so this year, I'm very honored that they recognize the need for AI education as the hot button pressing issue for that community and for these entrepreneurs. And so they brought us in as a partner to provide AI education for the grant winners that win in this current cohort. So we're really looking forward to be able to, again, bring that anchored intelligence framework, help people understand how they are the drivers of this technology, how it can, how you can trust but verify, and how you can, grow your top line, grow your bottom line in that AI education. So that is something we're really excited to do, and I strongly believe that this kind of private and public partnerships, so whether it is through workforce development boards or through corporations and brands that want to speak in this moment in a way that is valuable and impactful for communities, this is the way that it gets done. And providing pathways for access to high quality education is always a benefit for the society.
Yeah, talk about the unique value proposition. 'Cause I mean, I imagine, especially somebody at his level and the kind of things that they see with his team, there's a lot of people they could have partnered with, and they chose Monk. And what was it about your offering that they said, there's something unique here, something special here. This is the guy and his team to go fulfill this vision.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you pointing that out. I think it's humbling, and I think from the beginning of when I pitched it and spoke about it, and our team spoke about it. For me, I looked at the landscape of how AI training is typically handled, and it's typically handled like all tech training, and it is you do A and then B becomes the result. The way you were taught Microsoft Word or Excel or any of these other programs. And AI is very unique in that the use of language is a game changer. The fact that it's random is a game changer. There is so many things that it can replicate but then be wrong about, and so many things that it can create that you may not have even thought of while you were starting that process. And so for our framework, and what makes us different is, while others may be really focused on what's the greatest prompt that you can make, and we will cover those things and talk about best practices and all of that, it really is centered on the person and how you think and how you interact with the technology. I always tell people that it is, view it as an intern or an overeager colleague. And if you have something really important that you want to get done in the workplace, and you're having a colleague do it for you, the way you instruct, interact, the level of detail that you have changes compared to if you don't really think that that's that important. And so you'll be surprised how often people use AI like it's Google, and it's not Google. And so if you use it like that, you are missing out on 95% of the benefits of the tech.
Damn. Describe your leadership style.
Servant leadership. I think it's asking people to do things that you wouldn't do yourself is an abuse of leadership, especially if it is something that, being a part of the pulling people forward and providing education, mentorship, all of those things really requires you being in there, being in the mud with people. Yeah. And having done it, being a part of it, changes what you push forward towards. So for me, I think it's servant leadership all the way.
What did you have to learn about Monk and Monk's proclivities that helped you shape your leadership style today?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I say a lot. I spent some years doing executive coaching specifically for Black and Latinx corporate kind of mid-career professionals, and I say all the time that I was a career changer. So every 2 years I was not in a new job, I was in a new career. And so I was an actor, I was in investment sales, I did investment research on Wall Street while I was writing the book. I'd been in a bunch of different places. And what you notice is that, one, different places have completely different cultures, what people find important, and what, how we move forward with our work. But there's a lot of core elements of how we interact, how we want to be seen, how we want to show others that we see them. That is a through line between everything that we do. So it helped me become a better leader because I'm interacting with folks in all different aspects. And it also helped with being able to teach something like AI, because you get a view view of how different people look at the same problem. And at the end of the day, it's a tool that helps you solve problems, business problems, creative problems. And so getting that access to different ways of looking at it has been really beneficial in the work I do now.
Yeah, I'm going to ask the leadership question, but a different way. And so, what would make someone want to follow you?
What would make someone want to follow me? Wow. I think if I'm looking at a leader, there is an element of how will that person help me be better at, at whatever it is that I want to do. And in order to do that, sometimes we may pick the person who is in a position of power in the career that we have and say, well, that person can obviously get me the next job, internship, or whatever it is. But I think a great leader, and by no means am I saying I'm a great leader, but I think something about me is I take a genuine interest in other people. I want to know what makes you tick, what do you view as success, and why is that, and how do we get there, and what do you want to do moving forward? Because I think for any of us, and I'm noticing it now in my life as I kind of move from corporate to this endeavor, that to be fulfilled in life, to not just work and pay bills till you die, it requires you being used at your maximum, using all of the talents that you have in some form of service to other people. And so if that's not happening on both ends, then you'll be really good at something you don't enjoy, or you will, be struggling to do something that helps a lot of people, but that's not for you. So taking an interest in folks and helping them find those things, I think would be one of the reasons someone would be interested in following or listening.
Yeah, we spend a lot of time on this show talking about many ways, the variety of ways we in our community, Black people, can use or leverage or build technology to find wealth. And obviously, the huge conversation happening is about AI and that specific category of technology. And so when you think about the racial wealth gap and even the class wealth gap, I guess you can even say that's, how can AI help us solve these issues and these challenges?
Yeah. I mean, this is something I'm extremely passionate about because it can help it solve it in several different ways. And so when you have this gap, that structure goes down to where you got educated, the amount of opportunities you got exposed to, what you think of when you see a particular problem, all of these different things that can dictate how you move forward in trying to build wealth, and what you think is possible, what you have access to, and all of those things. It is a massive gap closer in some of the barriers of entry across a lot of industries, right? Like if I wanted to start something entrepreneurial, not only will I need to be extremely good at the thing that I'm coming out to do, whether it is designing sneakers, it is, starting a small mom and pop store, whatever it is, not only do I need to be extremely good at that to even give myself a chance to battle and succeed in the economy, there's so many other aspects of that work that I need to also be able to do. And for folks who have been moved or stepped aside in the process of learning those aspects, I'm really playing, I'm fighting with both hands tied behind my back. So when we talk about, how do I manage my finances? How do I write proposals? How do I respond to RFPs? How do I market my business, and how do I find my brand voice? What is a brand voice? All of these different things that you may have some of that knowledge, but a lot of times you don't. And regardless of where you are, I work with executive directors of nonprofits, corporate executives, people who are starting out in their career, working with students, and everyone has gaps, and everyone approaches this thing in a different way. And that community aspect is what's beautiful about the way we do our trainings, that we're all sitting in the same room, and I'm encouraging people to, whether it sounds smart or not, or silly, and you just thought it was cool that they put a green dot next to the answer, say it out loud, because those small missing, learnings that we all have is what makes is what's the difference. So getting back directly to your question, how does AI kind of close that? It gives you access to learn in a style that is exclusive or extremely helpful to you about topics that are important to you, in a way that will be resonant to you. And then you can then take action and do things in a way that is faster, more efficient, gets you to the benchmark, gets you to your zone of genius, the thing that you are actually here to compete on, the thing that you're shooting in the gym all day about. Let's get you to that. And so AI has that opportunity. And so when you do that at scale across communities, and you take a whole class of people through corporate America competing at a higher level and being able to put themselves forward in the workforce, entrepreneurs competing globally at a higher level, what does that do to the wealth that our community has?
Yeah. I think a lot of people more and more every day are realizing, a lot of entry point is chat GPT for a lot of people. It's just the entry point that most of us are aware of. And when they put their first prompt in, they're like, oh my God, look at what this thing can do. That can have a couple of different things. It's, oh my God, look at what this thing can do. Or, oh my God, look at what this thing can do. I'm in trouble. So like, I want to talk about the aha moment. Like, what are you seeing is most common as the aha moment for these Black entrepreneurs that you work with when they realize how it can be applicable to them, particularly to your earlier point?
I think there's a couple aha moments that happen all the time. There is we'll put in a prompt that I know typically has some fancy response that people will be like, oh, that's interesting. I'm surprised that it happens. I think the level one aha moment is, and I think where people spend the most amount of time and usually stay, which I think is a little disappointing, is when you find out how much time and effort it can save you on things. Because in itself, I mean, that is incredible. So if you've done work for any period of any amount of time, the hours that it takes to redo that PowerPoint, to rewrite that memo, to write that email, whatever it is. And so going through a couple exercises and getting that aha of like, wow, like I can really get this off the ground in not less than half the time is that kind of first level. But for me, the moments that I really find fascinating and what I think is kind of the like exponential beauty of this technology are the or those aha moments on the top line. So I call it, the boost of your ambition. And again, if you've worked or done anything, you have been kind of conditioned to understand what you can do and what you can't do, and whatever I'm going to propose or take on will fall within the bucket of what I can do, and I have an idea of what I can do. And working with folks across their careers and getting to that idea of when you see something that shows you I can actually do something 2 or 3 step levels above what I thought I can do before, because now it doesn't take as long to get that ground research. It doesn't take as long to, coalesce these 4 different ideas. It doesn't take as long, I'm able to look at much more information. So now my ambition of the projects I would take on, the business that I would start, what I would do, because if I could have this, then I'd really do it. That aha is the one that is really groundbreaking, because that aha then says, now you're going to go off and do something that you didn't think you could do before. And if we just keep doing that, right, across small businesses, across people in the corporate world, right? If you're trying to get a promotion and you have an idea of what you think you can do in your 8-hour day, and then you get to this boost of like, I can do a completely different thing. How do I change my strategic thinking? How do I change my day around the abilities that I now have?
Yeah. What's in your EDC, your everyday carry? Like, what are the things that Monk has to have before he leaves the house, before he leaves the apartment? Like, these things help you get through the tools, the things that help you get through your day to be most productive. And you can't say just your phone, because everybody does it.
No, it cannot be just my phone. I'd be naked out there. The phone's really important. I need headphones if I'm going to be anywhere. I have a Sony WX. I don't know why they don't have like simple names, but it's like it's over the ear. They're really nice, the nicest headphones I've ever gotten. And I, block out sound, listen to music, listen to stuff, and really kind of zone out. So headphones, good bag. I love podcasts and music, and yeah, opportunities to take part of culture is also really big for me. I know it's not a thing specifically if you're leaving the house, but if I didn't have access to be able to, watch the shows that we're all watching and partake in that conversation, I don't know what I'd do.
So headphones is the only thing that in your phone. That's all you need.
I need my
You
I
ever
need
need
my headphones and my phone and my wallet, and I think we're good to go.
I dig it. Talk to me about a book that you didn't write, another book that might have shaped your thinking.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many great books, and it's always funny when I talk to people who are in business, and you say like, "What's a book that you enjoy?" It's always a nonfiction, business related book. But there's a lot of fiction that has changed the way I look at things. I think I'm a current really big fan of Percival Everett, who wrote he wrote Erasure, which became American Fiction with Jeffrey Wright and Sterling K. Brown and all of them. The book Erasure was incredible. He had another book called Trees, just kind of just really, and what was interesting for me is as I move forward, really leaning into the uniqueness of who you are, the way you talk, the way you think of things, the way you interact with things. Especially as I do this AI work and interact with people who are all from all different backgrounds, and the way you interact with AI is around language. And so the language that we all use, we can be in the same socioeconomic class, we can be whatever it is, the language you use is different. And I think it's beautiful. Like I think, we all kind of raised to be ashamed of Ebonics and ashamed of like how people talk and everything like that. But I'm like, it's beautiful that you can sound like you're from Memphis, and you sound like you're from Houston,
Yeah.
and you sound like you're from Jersey, and I can tell. And no, you're from Philly. You just said John. Like all of that is really beautiful. And like some of those books like Trees and Erasure is just the use of language. Toni Morrison's another person of just really leaning into like our language is beautiful, and anyone that's telling you otherwise is just it's a lie.
What are some low cost or no cost tools that Black entrepreneurs, small business owners, mom and pops should be using to help them achieve scale or to just grow? Maybe scale isn't even the goal.
Yeah. I think one, scale not being the goal is a big one. I think getting into an understanding of like, what do you want? What do you
Yeah,
want
yeah.
your days to look like, and what does success look like for you? And then a lot of stuff I'm going to say is technology related. YouTube, people are, if you're not on YouTube, just seeing people talk about the thing that you're interested in, and being able to kind of learn and adapt and find community of people who are talking about what you do. And it doesn't matter what you do. You can have a hair salon in Miami. You can have, a laundromat in Detroit. There will be people online talking about the ins and outs of what is working, not working, the trends, all of that. I think that is one, that free education that's available online is one that is people don't tap into enough, even if you think you are.
Yeah, it's so often, well, I guess historically, we have, especially in our communities, you're trying to build a business, and the only way you know how is by getting, some consultant, some advisor who's probably going to cost you some money to be able to help you figure out the strategic plan to grow. But now you have AI, and you talked a little bit about earlier, this thing helping you save time, but now let's use it to a different level of helping you strategize. Can you talk about how we should be thinking about it? So when we are, saving the Chat GPT or Claude or Perplexity or whatever we're using to a bookmark on our, Chrome or whatever, we're downloading the app. When we're going to that thing every day, how should we be structuring the prompts, the questions that we ask so that we get higher quality answers and responses?
Yeah, I think in general, more descriptive language is key. And so, as a self audit for yourself, think about how you give instructions to people, to anyone. Because if you are poor at giving instructions and you tend to have people needing to do many revisions, your ChatGPT experiences you're not going to be getting the best out of it because you don't you're not detailed, you are not starting with the end in mind. I think is another thing is when you are coming to it. Again, here is the like not thinking of it as Google and thinking of it as this new technology. If it's Google, you will ask it question one, where can I get this? Then question two, you may know where you want to get to, but you're asking it one by one, and then you're looking through the results and seeing which one makes sense for you. With AI, start at the end. I am preparing this presentation that needs to do this. It is for this community. This group will be looking to hold it to this level of standard. I want to make sure that it combines these things. All of those things that may feel like, do I need to say all of that? Yeah, it will dramatically improve what you get back when you're working with it. And so it's an interesting dilemma where a technology is requiring you to be better in your soft skills. But essentially, you need to improve your soft skills. You need to improve your own clarity, because sometimes people will use AI and say the result was kind of crappy. And the honest truth is you weren't even clear about what you wanted yourself. You didn't even really know what you wanted to do. And because you're not that clear about it, this kind of brought you to the task. And now here is where we are. So again, when we center our humanity and who we are and really focus on like, how do you strategically think when you are partnered with someone who you respect, who is eminently, intelligent about the subject that we're going to work on? How do you collaborate? How do you work through it? And there's probably needs to be improvement there that will translate to how you use AI.
Yeah. So the businesses that you get an opportunity to work with. So I want you to talk about kind of the categories that they're in, the domain verticals that they're in, and based on those categories, what you typically find as issues and concerns with how they approach AI as an opportunity.
Yeah, I think so. There are the corporate brands like the Gran Caramino funds, and that is something that I think is newer in the space as far as corporate brands finding ways to be a part of the AI conversation through education and all of that. Some of the other entities that we work with, we're doing some training for fashion design students in Morgan State University, doing some work with NJIT and kind of developing one of the first online AI self-paced certifications. As far as one of the worries or mistakes that I see in the education space is students are constantly getting mixed messages. So the same university, you can be taking 4 courses, this other person's taking 4 courses, 3 of your professors told you, don't you ever touch AI, and if I even smell that you did, you're going to fail. And then you have another professor who's like, this is the future, let me teach you how to use it in a way that is helpful in this course. And the school doesn't have an overall policy of how you should use it, and so that kind of leaves you out in the lingering on what makes sense. And then at the other end of the school, maybe they have a research hub where they're getting $50 million a year to research AI, and we're not all talking to each other about the same thing. And so there really is a doom and gloom kind of fear. This is going to make things too easy. How do we teach if this thing is available, this AI is available? How do I give you an essay if AI can make the essay? And I always say, one, you still need a craftsman in front of these tools. If you don't know how to write an essay, then it will sound like an AI, very generic essay, because you don't know what you're doing. You don't know what you're looking for. You can't craft it. You can't do any of those things. So the same way we had to change the way we taught when the calculator came out, it's not like you gave up on math, calculator came out, now you can do it, forget it. You created math problems, right? You created a thing to say, now that I know that you have this tool, let me test your thinking, your creative problem solving. And that's the same thing that I keep saying when you center the person. It's like at the end of the day, this tool is only really helpful if you are a good creative thinker, a strategic thinker. And I'll show you some ways to interact with it to pull that out of you and get better at that. But the same thing kind of applies to students, and something that I think it's going to probably take a while. Universities tend to move slowly in these types of things, but that is the disadvantage. And so as a student, you have to kind of on your own realize that like, hey, I need to make sure I'm staying, up to speed on this technology.
Yeah. Can you talk about how AI and technology education in general can be structured or designed to not just teach skills, but empower ownership?
Yeah, I think that, for us in our framework, one of the important things is understanding, how this technology is working, right? It's been trained on things that have been created already, and that, whether it's creative books, whether it is manuals or whatever it is. And so if you are looking to use the tech, really making sure that you have an understanding of centering yourself and making sure that you have an understanding of what you are kind of producing. So if it's giving you facts, you verifying those facts. Is it making a thing that I tell people all the time? Level one is it told me that 50% of XYZ is, this is what the fact is. I'm going to go to the website and verify that fact is correct. There's a period of time where you absolutely needed to do that because most of the time it was a made up fact.
Yeah.
That's gotten a lot better. But the bigger or the dig a little bit deeper is, just like anything else, there are assumptions that are being made in how this is presented to you. So if I'm presenting an answer to you, I'm making some assumptions that this is true, this may not be true, this is what you're looking for, this is what you're not looking for. And so as a user of AI, being able to kind of question and say, all right, what assumptions did you make when you gave me this summary of the events? Because in order to give me a summary, you have to cut some stuff out. You have to find that, leave some stuff in, and you'll be surprised. Oh, I thought that you would be more interested in this as opposed to this. Oh, okay, no, actually, I need more information in this area, or that assumption is not true. So it is using your expertise and bringing in your expertise constantly, all the time as you're working with it. And it's a ongoing process because it's so quick to bring detailed information. You end up getting kind of lazy in how much you kind of go through and say, well, let's now go through this. But you got time now. You made a report in 10 seconds. Sit there and work on it.
I want you to leave the small business owners, the entrepreneurs, with some homework. So if you do this every day, and so you're teaching people how to use these tools and giving them exposure to the tools, for small business owners who may not yet have, a folder bookmark of a bunch of, AI tools like I do, what would you encourage them to do, having listened to you talk today, as a first step to make some progress so that they can grow their business, they can get some of their time back, they can, create some new revenue streams or et cetera? What should they be doing?
Yeah, I think, one, I highly encourage, getting joining a good newsletter. There's a lot of newsletters around AI that kind of distill it in a way that is, some are much more tech forward and others are maybe application and what we can use it for. I think another thing is really understanding what you are trying to do with your small business, and maybe that process makes you realize that you don't really know, that you're not really sure, like, what is the goal, what am I trying to achieve. You're just, maybe your head has just been underwater and you're just trying to stay open, and that's real, and that can be the case. So with AI, it's figuring out what you want to do with your business and playing around with it. Find some training. I always encourage people to reach out to us, and we love to have conversations and find ways that we can collaborate with folks. But find some introductory training of just how it works, and then mess around with it. Give it opportunities to test things out, tell you about something you already know, and then question it. And just see how it presents information to you, see how that lands, and that's where you start. There's no one and done manual on AI, so waiting for the end all be all, here it is, you're going to be waiting forever. It really is just get in there. We obviously recommend having a framework to do it, but really getting in there and messing around with it and seeing how it works.